365 days ago, I quit my six-figure engineering job to go all out on my Etsy business. So, now that it's officially been 1 year since I walked away from my 9 to 5 job, I wanted to reflect on the past year and give you guys an update. So, for anyone who's new here, my name is Connor, and over the last few years, I built a side hustle that grew to over $218,000 per year while working full time by selling print on demand products on Etsy. I'll link a video at the end of this video that talks more about how I was able to build that side business. But after years of consistency and hard work on Etsy, over many weekends and in the hours outside of my 9 to 5 job, my business had grown to the point where I needed to make a decision to go all out on the business or scale back the business and stay at my 9 to 5 engineering job. My wife and I had already hired our first team member at this point, and we knew that the coming Q4 season was going to be our biggest ever. It was honestly one of the hardest decisions of my life because I loved my engineering job and the people I worked with. I was in the fast lane in my career and had an incredible opportunity working for one of the biggest defense companies in the world as one of the lead mechanical engineers on a multi-billion-dollar missile defense program. The problem was I could see exactly where I would end up in 30 years. And while it would have resulted in a highly respected career and the chance to work on incredibly challenging and rewarding problems, that thought scared me. And I just knew there was more. I knew that owning my own business would allow me to create the life that I wanted without being capped in income by a salary or needing to go into an office each day. So, after many months of serious reflection and prayer, I realized I would regret not trying to go all out on my business more than I would leaving my engineering career. And so, in October of 2024, my wife and I made the decision. I gave my notice. My last day was October 17th last year. So, after I quit my job, I was immediately thrown into the busiest Q4 season of my life. I barely had any time to enjoy my new schedule and the new lifestyle. I quickly began working 15-hour days, 7 days a week, just trying to keep up with all the customer service and orders that came over the next 60 days or so. To put it simply, I was overwhelmed. I remember thinking at times, what am I doing? I just walked away from an amazing job and opportunity to sit here all day responding to Etsy messages and processing orders. But it was all worth it. We finished the year with our best year yet. And over just those 3 months, October, November, and December, our business made $114,000 in profit, which was more than my entire engineering yearly salary. Then the new year hit, and my wife quit her job too. And over the next couple of weeks, we packed up our apartment in New Hampshire and drove all the way across the country to our new home in Colorado. A big reason for us leaving our jobs was to be able to move to Colorado, to be closer to and more involved with our church, which we had been watching consistently online since 2020. Almost down to the exact weekend, I started my first Etsy business, which I no longer believe is a coincidence. I won't spend much time on it in this video, but if you're interested in hearing more about our story and our faith journey, I'll link a podcast episode where we talk about it in detail at the end of this video. So, after settling in our new home in Colorado, we began to get into a routine. We were both now working full-time on our business together for the first time ever. However, as many Etsy sellers know, January through March can be some of the slowest months on Etsy. And so I quickly became discouraged. Even though we had been selling on Etsy for years and I knew about this typical sales trend, I felt like we were putting in all this work but not seeing any results. In early March, a couple days before we were supposed to go on a 2-week family vacation to Mexico, I became so overwhelmed and stressed. It was definitely my low point this year, and I just felt like I had made a huge mistake leaving my job and that this business was never going to grow to where I wanted it to grow. And now we were just taking 2 weeks off, which, if it isn't obvious, you don't get PTO when you own your own business. But I clung to my faith during that discouraging time, and we went on the trip, taking 2 weeks off from working on our Etsy shops when almost every bone in my body told me we needed to be preparing for Mother's Day. We enjoyed the trip, and then fast forward a couple months later, we ran over $140,000 over the peak 30 days of the Mother's Day season. It was more than we had ever done during that time of the year. We finally were reaping the harvest of all the hard work we had sowed months before. It was a huge reminder for me of this verse from Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, which says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." The Lord promises that we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And I want to be really clear so that this isn't misinterpreted. Don't hear what I'm not saying. God does not promise financial wealth, and neither do I. The context of this verse is mostly in terms of spiritual harvest. However, as Etsy sellers, we are creating products that often help people celebrate the most difficult and happiest times of their lives. When we sell an ornament themed as a memorial for someone who has experienced a miscarriage, we're not just making a few dollars, we're providing a memorial, hope, and comfort to that woman and that family during one of the hardest moments of their life. And when we sell a custom wedding ornament, we're again not just making a few dollars, but providing a memory to a couple remembering one of the happiest days of their life. Profit is just the byproduct of providing value in a capitalist society. And I think it's an important reminder that we, as Etsy sellers, have the opportunity to truly do good while still making a profit. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18 says, "Remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the ability to produce wealth." I recently shared that Galatians verse with a student and part of my story with them as encouragement. They are in a season of sowing, and I encourage them to not give up by pointing them to God's word. Having these types of interactions with other business owners is usually the best part of my week. And recently, we had a private group coaching call with about 50 or so people attending live as we helped them get ready for the Q4 season. One person, clearly taking the call from her car while asking a question, suddenly became flustered and then shared with the group that she had just been diagnosed with cancer. The positive and encouraging response immediately from the other members on the call was amazing. And a small group of us, of about 12 to 15, ended up staying on the call at the end to pray for her. After these most recent interactions, I've had so much clarity on why we're doing all of this, why we're sharing our story on YouTube, and why we will continue to do so. My wife, Lauren, and I will continue to lean into our faith and share that with all of you because it has been the center of our story all along, and this world needs Jesus more than ever. So, to get back to our business over this past year, after the 140K month in the spring, we hired our second team member and have been consistently training and preparing for the next Q4 season, which we hope to be our biggest ever. We opened our third Etsy shop and have been documenting our journey here on YouTube to help all of you, with the mission of making success on Etsy attainable for anyone willing to put in the work. We also surpassed $2 million in lifetime sales on Etsy, which was pretty cool. I sometimes still wonder what it would be like if I never left my engineering job. But then I'm quickly reminded of the incredible year we've had, from connecting with our church community, to connecting with all of you on YouTube, to traveling to Mexico and Florida with family, and up to the mountains on spontaneous day trips whenever we want to without having to ask for PTO. We really are building the life we dreamed of. I share all of this because this can be your story too. Building a business on Etsy can allow you to build the life you want, just like we have. The most important thing is that you start trying. And if you have already started, that you do not give up, for you will reap a harvest at the proper time. Thanks for watching, and if you are interested in hearing more about our story, here are the links to the 2 videos I mentioned earlier.